We're establishing the foundation of our story, introducing John Bishop, played, of course, by Jason Statham, and the tragically naive Ben Carter. It's crucial to quickly cement their bond. These aren't just acquaintances. They're brothers in all but blood. Think opening scene. Maybe a flashback to their childhood, a daring rescue from a bully, or a shared youthful dream. Something visceral that instantly conveys decades of unwavering loyalty. Then, snap back to the present. John is a man of few words, hardened by his past in special forces. He's comfortable in his own skin, radiating quiet competence. Perhaps he runs a small, unassuming business, a garage, a security consultancy, something that allows him to use his skills without drawing too much attention. His life is simple, bordering on solitary, but content. Ben, on the other hand, is the extrovert, the dreamer. He's built a successful tech company, driven by innovation and a genuine desire to make the world a better place. He's got that infectious optimism, the kind that can convince you anything is possible. But that optimism also makes him vulnerable. Show, don't tell, they're dynamic. A casual lunch at their favorite diner, filled with easy banter and inside jokes. John subtly advising Ben on a security flaw in his company's software. Ben excitedly pitching John on his latest philanthropic venture. We need to see their contrasting personalities. The way they complement each other. The unspoken understanding that binds them. Crucially, plant the seeds of Ben's downfall. He's riding high, but there's a subtle undercurrent of desperation. He's pushing himself too hard, chasing the next big thing, perhaps feeling the pressure to live up to his own idealistic image. Maybe he's hinted at financial worries, masked with bravado. This initial section needs to establish the stakes. Ben's life isn't just a life. It's a beacon of hope, a symbol of what's possible. John's friendship with him isn't just a bond. It's the anchor that keeps him grounded. By making us care about these characters, by showing us the beauty and fragility of their world, will amplify the impact of the tragedy to come and justify John's subsequent, relentless pursuit of justice. It's not just about revenge. It's about honoring a fallen brother and protecting the values he stood for. The clock is ticking, and the stage is set. Now, we need to introduce the serpent into this idyllic garden. Ben, buzzing with excitement, approaches John with an investment opportunity that promises astronomical returns. The key here is to make it believable, not cartoonishly obvious. It shouldn't scream scam from the rooftops. Think of it as a new cryptocurrency, a revolutionary AI algorithm, or a breakthrough in renewable energy. Something cutting-edge and complex enough to sound plausible, even to a skeptical mind like John's. Ben presents it with carefully crafted charts and graphs, testimonials from satisfied investors, likely fabricated, but convincing at first glance, and the promise of changing the world while making a fortune. John, ever pragmatic, raises questions. He points out the inherent risks, the lack of transparency, the too good to be true nature of the returns. He's not condemning Ben, but offering a voice of reason, a counterpoint to Ben's infectious enthusiasm. This scene needs to showcase John's intelligence and intuition, demonstrating that he's not easily fooled, that he sees the red flags, even if Ben chooses to ignore them. Ben, however, is already hooked. He's blinded by the potential, the allure of quick riches, and the validation of being in on the ground floor of something big. He dismisses John's concerns, attributing them to John's inherent conservatism and lack of understanding of the modern financial landscape. He might even accuse John of being jealous of his success, a subtle jab that reveals a deeper insecurity. This is where we subtly ratchet up the tension. Ben pours a significant portion of his wealth into the investment, perhaps even leveraging his company's assets. He's convinced he's on the verge of a life-altering breakthrough, a chance to secure his legacy and fund his philanthropic endeavors on a grander scale. We need to show the seductive power of the scam, the way it preys on people's hopes and dreams. It's not just about greed. It's about ambition, the desire to make a difference, and the fear of missing out. Ben isn't a villain. He's a well-intentioned man who's been manipulated by sophisticated predators. The scene ends with John reluctantly accepting Ben's decision, offering a warning and a promise. Just be careful, Ben. If anything goes wrong, you know I'm here for you. It's a subtle foreshadowing of the tragedy to come, a quiet acknowledgement of the danger that lies ahead. The seed of destruction has been planted, and the clock is ticking towards inevitable heartbreak. Time has passed, a few months at least. The initial excitement has faded, replaced by a gnawing anxiety. Ben is no longer the vibrant, optimistic entrepreneur we met earlier. He's gaunt. His clothes are rumpled, and his eyes carry a haunted look. The revolutionary investment has turned sour. The promised returns never materialized. Instead, Ben is facing margin calls, mounting debts, and the looming threat of complete financial ruin. We see him frantically trying to salvage the situation. He's on the phone constantly, pleading with investors, begging for extensions, and desperately trying to find new sources of funding. His company is teetering on the brink of collapse, and his personal life is in shambles. He's isolated himself from his friends and family, consumed by guilt and shame. A scene could depict Ben desperately trying to sell off assets. His expensive car, his lavish apartment, anything to raise capital and stave off the inevitable. He's reduced to begging and borrowing, sacrificing everything he's worked for in a futile attempt to recoup his losses. The key is to show the human cost of the scam. Ben isn't just losing money. He's losing his identity, his self-respect, and his hope for the future. He's become a shell of his former self, a broken man haunted by his own naivety. Finally, in a moment of desperation, Ben confides in John. He reveals the truth. The investment was a sophisticated Ponzi scheme, a meticulously crafted illusion designed to defraud unsuspecting victims. He's been played, manipulated, and stripped bare by a ruthless organization operating in the shadows. This confession is a turning point. Ben is broken, admitting his failure and the devastating consequences of his actions. He's not seeking help, but rather absolution, a desperate attempt to unburden himself before he succumbs to despair. John listens patiently, his face a mask of controlled fury. He offers words of comfort, but his eyes betray the simmering rage beneath the surface. He knows that Ben is beyond saving, that the damage is irreparable. The scene ends with Ben's voice cracking, tears streaming down his face. "I've lost everything, John," he whispers. Everything. It's a haunting premonition of what's to come, a chilling glimpse into the abyss that awaits him. The trap has been sprung, and Ben is about to fall. The stage is now set for John's transformation from a loyal friend into a relentless force of vengeance. The call comes late at night. John answers, his voice gruff with sleep. It's the police. They found Ben dead in his apartment. Overdose. Apparent suicide. John rushes to the scene, his mind reeling. The apartment is a mess, a stark contrast to the meticulously organized space Ben once kept. Empty bottles of pills litter the floor, a final, desperate act of self-destruction. The police are perfunctory, going through the motions. They see a clear case of suicide. A man financially ruined, overwhelmed by despair. They're already closing the case, eager to move on to the next tragedy. John, however, sees something else. He notices subtle inconsistencies, a misplaced object, a faint bruise on Ben's wrist, a lingering scent of unfamiliar cologne. His instincts, honed by years of experience, tell him that something is amiss. He tries to voice his concerns to the lead detective, but he's dismissed as a grieving friend, blinded by emotion. The detective is jaded, cynical, and unwilling to entertain the possibility of foul play. He's already made up his mind. This scene is crucial for establishing John's unwavering conviction that Ben's death was not simply a suicide. It's not just grief that fuels his rage, but a deep-seated sense of injustice. He knows Ben, he knows his spirit, and he refuses to believe that he would willingly take his own life without a fight. As the police pack up and leave, John remains in the apartment, meticulously examining the scene. He's searching for clues, for any piece of evidence that might contradict the official narrative. He's not a detective, but he possesses a unique set of skills and a burning desire to uncover the truth. He finds a hidden note, tucked away in a book. A cryptic message containing a name and a date. It's a breadcrumb. A faint glimmer of hope in the darkness. It's enough to ignite his resolve, to transform his grief into a burning quest for vengeance. John stands over Ben's lifeless body, his face etched with sorrow and determination. He makes a silent vow. He will find the people responsible for Ben's death, and he will make them pay. He will dismantle their corrupt empire, one brutal beatdown at a time. The transformation is complete. John Bishop, the grieving friend, is gone. In his place stands a relentless force of retribution. The hunt begins. Now, John puts his plan into action. He's not going to rely on the police. He's going to conduct his own investigation, using his unique skills and resources to uncover the truth. His first step, dissecting Ben's financial records. He spends days poring over bank statements, investment documents, and online transactions. He's looking for patterns, anomalies, anything that might lead him to the people responsible for Ben's downfall. This isn't a glamorous montage. It's a gritty, painstaking process, fueled by grief and determination. He starts with Ben's computer. A treasure trove of information. He discovers encrypted emails, hidden files, and deleted messages. He uses his technical expertise, perhaps a skill from his special forces days, to bypass security measures and recover the lost data. The trail leads him to a series of shell corporations, each more convoluted than the last. These companies are registered in offshore havens, designed to obscure the flow of money and protect the identities of the individuals involved. He identifies the first layer of the scam, a small-time crook named Mickey Fingers Malone. Malone is a low-level operative, a pawn in a much larger game. He's the one who initially approached Ben with the investment opportunity, acting as a recruiter for the Ponzi scheme. Malone is a sleazy character, a bottom feeder who preys on vulnerable individuals. He's living a modest lifestyle, driving a beat-up car and frequenting dive bars. He's not the mastermind behind the scam, but he's a crucial link in the chain. John tracks Malone down to a seedy gambling den in the city's underbelly. He observes him for a while, studying his habits and routines. He's planning his next move, carefully considering his options. He knows that Malone won't willingly provide information. He'll have to be persuaded. John is prepared to use whatever means necessary to extract the truth. He's not a cop. He's a man on a mission, driven by a relentless thirst for vengeance. The scene ends with John approaching Malone in the dimly lit alley behind the gambling den. He's not wearing a mask. He's not hiding his identity. He wants Malone to know who he is and why he's there. "Mickey," he says, his voice low and menacing. "We need to talk about Ben Carter." The stage is set for the first brutal beatdown. The confrontation with Mickey Fingers Malone explodes into action. John doesn't waste time with pleasantries. He's direct, demanding information about the Ponzi scheme and the people behind it. Malone, initially defiant, quickly realizes he's outmatched. Statham's John Bishop radiates a controlled menace that promises pain if he doesn't cooperate. This isn't just a fight. It's an interrogation through physical dominance. Each punch, each kick, each expertly applied pressure point is a question, a demand for answers. John uses his environment to his advantage, the brick walls of the alley, the metal dumpster, anything to amplify the pain and break Malone's resistance. The fight choreography should be brutal and efficient, showcasing Statham's signature style. It's not about flashy moves. It's about raw power and precision. John is a seasoned fighter, and he knows how to inflict maximum damage with minimal effort. Malone, initially boasting and threatening, quickly crumbles under the pressure. He reveals scraps of information, names, addresses, and code words. He's terrified, desperate to escape John's wrath. As Malone divulges information. The scene intercuts with flashbacks of Ben's interactions with Malone, highlighting the latter's manipulative tactics and the devastating impact on Ben's life. This adds emotional weight to the fight, fueling John's rage and justifying his brutal methods. Malone reveals that he was just following orders, that he was recruited by a mid-level manager within the organization named Silas. Silas is a shadowy figure, a gatekeeper who controls access to the upper echelons of the Ponzi scheme. He provides John with a location where Silas frequents, a high-stakes poker game held in a clandestine underground casino. It's a dangerous place, filled with criminals and opportunists, but it's John's only lead. The fight culminates with John delivering a final, bone-jarring blow that leaves Malone unconscious and broken. He's not dead, but he's in no condition to cause any further harm. John leaves him lying in the alley, a warning to anyone else who might be involved. Before leaving, John retrieves a key from Malone's pocket. a key to a safety deposit box containing further evidence and information about the Ponzi scheme. It's a small victory, but it's enough to keep him moving forward. This action sequence serves multiple purposes. It establishes John's fighting prowess, it provides crucial information about the organization, and it demonstrates his willingness to cross the line to achieve his goals. It's a visceral and impactful scene that sets the tone for the rest of the film. The hunt continues and the body count is rising. Following the lead gleaned from Malone, John arrives at the underground casino. It's a hive of illicit activity. A smoky, dimly lit den filled with high rollers, hardened criminals, and beautiful, but dangerous, women. The air is thick with tension and the scent of expensive cigars. John, dressed in a sharp suit, blends in seamlessly. He's a wolf in sheep's clothing, observing the players, assessing the risks, and searching for Silas. He uses the key he obtained from Malone to access the safety deposit box. Finding a stack of cash and a forged identity, he's now Mr. Smith, a man with a reputation for high-stakes gambling. He approaches the poker table, confidently placing a large bet. He's a skilled player, using his intelligence and intuition to read his opponents and control the game. He wins consistently, quickly attracting attention. Silas, a slick, impeccably dressed man with a cold demeanor, takes notice of John's impressive skills and his growing pile of cash. He sees an opportunity, a potential mark. He invites John to a private game, a more exclusive affair held in a secluded back room. This is exactly what John wants. He accepts the invitation, knowing that he's walking into a trap. He's prepared for anything. His senses heightened, his guard up. The private game is even more dangerous than the public one. The stakes are higher, the players are more ruthless, and the security is tighter. John is surrounded by armed guards, all loyal to Silas. He continues to win, skillfully manipulating the game and gaining Silas's trust. He engages Silas in conversation, subtly probing for information about the Ponzi scheme and the organization behind it. Silas is cautious, revealing nothing of substance. He's suspicious of John, sensing that he's not who he claims to be. He orders his guards to keep a close eye on him. The tension builds throughout the game, culminating in a high-stakes hand that will determine everything. John knows that this is his opportunity to make his move. He goes all in, pushing his entire stack of chips onto the table. Silas hesitates, his eyes darting around the room. He knows that accepting the bet could be a trap, but the potential reward is too tempting to resist. He calls John's bet, revealing his hand. It's a strong hand, but not strong enough. John reveals his hand, a winning combination that secures his victory. Silas is furious, realizing that he's been played. He orders his guards to seize John, but it's too late. John is ready for them. The game is over, and the fight is about to begin. The poker game erupts into a chaotic brawl that Silas's guards swarm John, but they are no match for his speed and skill. He moves with lethal efficiency, disarming and incapacitating them with brutal precision. The close-quarters combat showcases Statham's mastery of hand-to-hand fighting, using his environment to his advantage. The fight choreography is fast-paced and visceral, with bone-crunching impacts and realistic takedowns. John is outnumbered, but he's not outmatched. He uses his agility and tactical awareness to evade attacks and exploit weaknesses. Silas watches in disbelief as his guards are systematically eliminated. He tries to escape, but John intercepts him, grabbing him and slamming him against a wall. The interrogation begins. John demands information about the organization, about the people who orchestrated the Ponzi scheme and ruined Ben's life. Silas, terrified, tries to bargain for his life, offering John money and protection. John is unmoved. He's not interested in money. He's interested in justice. He tightens his grip on Silas, increasing the pressure. Silas, gasping for air, reveals the name of his superior, Victor Sinclair. Victor Sinclair is the head of the organization, the mastermind behind the Ponzi scheme. He's a powerful and ruthless businessman with connections to corrupt politicians and law enforcement. He's untouchable, but John is determined to reach him. Silas provides John with information about Sinclair's operations, his headquarters, and his security protocols. He also reveals a weakness. Sinclair has a gambling addiction. John realizes that he can use Sinclair's addiction against him, luring him into a Trapped. He plans to infiltrate Sinclair's inner circle, gaining his trust and exposing his crimes to the world. As Silas finishes speaking, a SWAT team bursts into the casino. They've been tipped off, likely by Sinclair, who wants to eliminate any loose ends. John realizes that he's been set up. He grabs Silas and uses him as a human shield. Navigating through the chaos and gunfire, he fights his way out of the casino, leaving a trail of bodies in his wake. He escapes into the night, leaving Silas behind for the SWAT team to apprehend. He knows that Silas is now a liability, a loose end that Sinclair will likely eliminate. The scene ends with John disappearing into the shadows, leaving the burning casino behind him. He's one step closer to Sinclair, but he knows that he's walking into a war. The stakes are higher than ever, and the danger is escalating. The hunt for justice continues. Now armed with Victor Sinclair's name, John begins to delve into Sinclair's world. He needs to understand his operations, his weaknesses, and his connections. He uses the information gleaned from Silas, along with his own research, to piece together a profile of the man he's hunting. He discovers that Sinclair is a philanthropist, a respected member of the community. He donates to charities, funds, scholarships, and supports local initiatives. He's built a reputation as a benevolent benefactor, masking his criminal activities behind a veneer of respectability. One of the charities Sinclair supports is a local organization that provides assistance to underprivileged children. John suspects that this charity is being used as a front for money laundering. He decides to investigate, hoping to find evidence that will expose Sinclair's true nature. He visits the charity's headquarters, posing as a potential donor. He meets with the director, a seemingly well-meaning woman who is unaware of Sinclair's criminal activities. John asks questions about the charity's operations, its financial records, and its relationship with Sinclair. He's subtle, careful not to arouse suspicion. He notices inconsistencies in the director's responses, discrepancies in the financial reports. He realizes that his suspicions are correct. The charity is being used to launder money. He discovers that Sinclair is funneling millions of dollars through the charity, disguising the proceeds of the Ponzi scheme as charitable donations. He's using the charity to avoid taxes and to conceal his ill-gotten gains. John needs to find concrete evidence to prove Sinclair's crimes. He decides to infiltrate the charity's headquarters, hoping to access their financial records and expose the truth. He waits until nightfall, then sneaks into the building. He bypasses the security system, using his technical skills to disable the alarms and cameras. He searches the offices, meticulously examining the documents and computer files. He finds a hidden server room, containing a vast database of financial records. He hacks into the database, downloading the files onto a USB drive. He now has the evidence he needs to expose Sinclair's crimes to the world. As he's leaving the building, he's confronted by security guards. They've been alerted to his presence, and they're armed and dangerous. John is forced to fight his way out of the building, engaging the guards in a brutal and intense firefight. He uses his tactical skills and his knowledge of the building's layout to his advantage. Taking down the guards one by one, he escapes into the night, leaving the charity headquarters behind him. He now has the evidence he needs to bring Sinclair to justice. The net is closing, and Sinclair's empire is about to crumble. With the evidence from the charity infiltration in hand, John needs to disseminate it and expose Sinclair to the world. However, he knows Sinclair has influence over the media and the police. He needs to find a way to get the information out there that Sinclair cannot suppress. He remembers an old colleague from his Special Forces days, Sarah Chun. Sarah is a skilled hacker and investigative journalist, now working independently and known for her fearless pursuit of truth. She's off the grid, difficult to find, but John knows how to reach her. He contacts Sarah through a secure channel, sharing the evidence he's gathered. Sarah is immediately intrigued and agrees to help. She recognizes the significance of the information and the danger involved. Sarah begins to analyze the data, confirming its authenticity and preparing it for publication. She identifies several corrupt politicians and law enforcement officials who are in Sinclair's pocket. She also uncovers evidence that Sinclair has been involved in other criminal activities, including drug trafficking and arms dealing. The Ponzi scheme is just the tip of the iceberg. As Sarah prepares to release the information, she's targeted by Sinclair's security forces. They attempt to hack into her systems and steal the data, But Sarah is a formidable opponent. She uses her skills to defend herself, repelling the attacks and securing the information. Sinclair, realizing that he's about to be exposed, orders his men to eliminate Sarah. He sends a team of assassins to her location, determined to silence her before she can release the evidence. John, knowing that Sarah is in danger, rushes to her aid. He arrives just as the assassins are closing in. A fierce firefight ensues, with John protecting Sarah from the attackers. The action sequence is intense and suspenseful, with John using all his skills to defend Sarah from the assassins. He's outnumbered and outgunned, but he's determined to protect her at all costs. He manages to eliminate the assassins, but Sarah is injured in the process. He gets her to safety, knowing that she needs medical attention. Despite her injuries, Sarah is determined to release the information. She uploads the data to a secure server, making it available to journalists and investigators around the world. The truth about Victor Sinclair is finally out. The evidence is irrefutable, and Sinclair's empire begins to crumble. The corrupt politicians and law enforcement officials who were protecting him are exposed, and they face prosecution. The news spreads like wildfire, sparking outrage and calls for justice. Sinclair becomes a pariah, his reputation ruined, and his criminal activities exposed. He's now a hunted man, desperate to escape the consequences of his actions. Sinclair, now a fugitive, retreats to his heavily fortified headquarters, a modern skyscraper overlooking the city. He's surrounded by loyal security personnel and protected by state-of-the-art technology. He's determined to weather the storm and rebuild his empire. John knows that he needs to confront Sinclair directly, to bring him to justice for his crimes. He devises a plan to infiltrate Sinclair's headquarters, knowing that it will be the most dangerous mission of his life. He studies the building's blueprints, analyzing its security systems and identifying potential weaknesses. He gathers intelligence on Sinclair's security personnel. Learning their routines and vulnerabilities, he realizes that he needs help to breach Sinclair's defenses. He reaches out to another former colleague from his Special Forces days, Marcus "Mac" Johnson. Mac is a demolitions expert, a master of explosives and infiltration tactics. Mac is reluctant to get involved, having left his old life behind. But John convinces him that it's the right thing to do, that Sinclair is a threat to society and needs to be stopped. Mac agrees to help, providing John with the tools and expertise he needs to infiltrate Sinclair's headquarters. He develops a plan to disable the building's security systems and create a diversion, allowing John to gain access. The infiltration begins at night, under the cover of darkness. Mac sets off a series of explosions around the building, creating chaos and confusion. The security personnel are distracted, focusing on the external threat. John uses the diversion to his advantage, scaling the building and bypassing the security systems. He moves with stealth and precision, avoiding detection. He reaches Sinclair's penthouse suite, the heart of his operation. He breaches the door, surprising Sinclair and his remaining security guards. A final, brutal showdown ensues. John faces off against Sinclair's elite guards, engaging them in a fierce and intense firefight. He uses his skills and training to overcome the odds, taking down the guards one by one. He finally confronts Sinclair, who is armed and dangerous. Sinclair tries to reason with John, offering him money and power to join his organization. John refuses. He's not interested in money or power. He's interested in justice. He engages Sinclair in a hand-to-hand fight, a final battle between good and evil. The fight is brutal and personal, with both men giving it their all. John eventually gains the upper hand, disarming Sinclair and subduing him. He arrests Sinclair, bringing him to justice for his crimes. Sinclair's empire is destroyed, and his victims receive some measure of compensation. John has avenged Ben's death and brought down a corrupt organization. He's a hero, but he's also a broken man, haunted by the violence he's witnessed and the lives he's taken. The infiltration of Sinclair's headquarters is a carefully orchestrated operation. Mac's explosions create a diversion, drawing security personnel away from the main entrance. John uses his skills to scale the building, bypassing security checkpoints and cameras. He reaches the penthouse level, where Sinclair is holed up. He breaches the outer defenses, encountering resistance from Sinclair's elite guards. A fierce firefight ensues, with John using his tactical skills and his knowledge of the building's layout to his advantage. He moves with speed and precision, taking down the guards one by one. The fight choreography is intense and realistic, showcasing Statham's mastery of close-quarters combat. He uses a variety of weapons and techniques, adapting to the changing circumstances. He encounters a particularly formidable opponent, Sinclair's head of security, a hulking brute with years of experience. The two engage in a brutal hand-to-hand fight, trading blows and testing each other's limits. John uses his agility and intelligence to outmaneuver his opponent, exploiting his weaknesses and gaining the upper hand. He delivers a series of devastating blows, incapacitating the head of security. He finally reaches Sinclair's inner sanctum, where Sinclair is waiting for him, armed and dangerous. Sinclair tries to intimidate John, reminding him of his power and influence. John is unmoved. He's not afraid of Sinclair. He's determined to bring him to justice. He engages Sinclair in a final, climactic battle. Sinclair is a skilled fighter, but he's no match for John's training and experience. John systematically dismantles Sinclair's defenses, disarming him and subduing him. The fight culminates in a brutal and satisfying takedown, with John delivering a final blow that leaves Sinclair defeated and humiliated. As John apprehends Sinclair, the police arrive, alerted by the chaos and destruction. They take Sinclair into custody, bringing him to justice for his crimes. John surveys the scene, taking in the aftermath of the battle. He's exhausted but satisfied, knowing that he's accomplished his mission. He's avenged Ben's death and brought down a corrupt organization. He's a hero, but he's also a broken man, haunted by the violence he's witnessed and the lives he's taken. He walks away from the scene, disappearing into the night, leaving the police to clean up the mess. He's a ghost, a vigilante, a force for justice in a corrupt world. With Sinclair subdued and awaiting the authorities, John finds himself face to face with the man responsible for so much pain and destruction. He leads Sinclair into his opulent office, overlooking the city that he once controlled. John doesn't raise his voice, doesn't threaten him. He simply wants to understand. He asks Sinclair why he did it, why he preyed on innocent people, why he ruined Ben's life. Sinclair, stripped of his power and facing the consequences of his actions, reveals his twisted worldview. He justifies his actions as simply playing the game of capitalism, as doing what was necessary to survive and thrive in a cutthroat world. He claims that Ben was a fool, a naive idealist who was too weak to compete. He shows no remorse for his actions, no empathy for his victims. John listens patiently, his face a mask of controlled anger. He realizes that Sinclair is a sociopath, incapable of understanding the value of human life or the consequences of his actions. He confronts Sinclair with the evidence of his crimes, with the faces of the people he's hurt, with the memory of Ben's tragic death. He wants Sinclair to understand the pain he's caused, to acknowledge the devastation he's wrought. Sinclair remains defiant, refusing to admit any wrongdoing. He claims that he's done nothing wrong, that he simply played the game better than anyone else. John realizes that there's no reaching Sinclair, that he's beyond redemption. He's a lost cause, a monster who deserves to be punished. He tells Sinclair that he's going to pay for his crimes, that he's going to face justice for what he's done. He assures Sinclair that his victims will receive some measure of compensation, that their suffering will not be in vain. Sinclair scoffs, claiming that he'll never be brought to justice, that his connections and influence will protect him. He's confident that he'll be able to escape the consequences of his actions. John smiles grimly, knowing that Sinclair is wrong. He's already ensured that Sinclair will be held accountable for his crimes, that he'll face the full weight of the law. He leaves Sinclair alone in his office, awaiting the arrival of the authorities. He knows that Sinclair's life is about to change forever, that he's going to spend the rest of his days behind bars, paying for his sins. The scene ends with John walking away from Sinclair, leaving him to face his fate. He's brought down a monster, avenged his friend's death, and restored some measure of justice to the world. But he's also left with a deep sense of loss and a haunting awareness of the darkness that lurks within the human heart. Although Sinclair is subdued, the need for a more visceral, physical reckoning lingers. The intellectual confrontation, while revealing Sinclair's depravity, leaves John wanting something more, a final act of physical justice. Sinclair, despite his capture, continues to taunt John, confident that he will somehow escape punishment. He speaks of his lawyers, his connections, and the inherent flaws in the justice system. He believes he is above the law and will ultimately prevail. He pushes John's buttons, mentioning Ben's naivete and weakness, insinuating that Ben deserved what happened to him. He mocks John's loyalty and his unwavering belief in justice. John, initially maintaining his composure, finds his anger rising. Sinclair's words are like knives, twisting in his gut and reopening old wounds. The memory of Ben's suffering, his despair, and his final act of desperation fuels John's rage. He tries to control himself, reminding himself that he's already won, that Sinclair is defeated. But Sinclair's taunts are relentless, pushing him closer and closer to the edge. Sinclair makes a fatal mistake. He mentions Ben's family, hinting that he might target them next. He suggests that John's quest for justice has only made things worse, putting his loved ones in danger. That's the breaking point. John snaps. He unleashes his pent-up rage, delivering a series of brutal blows to Sinclair's face and body. The fight is short and savage, a release of years of pent-up anger and frustration. John doesn't hold back, using all his strength and skill to inflict maximum damage. Sinclair, initially defiant, quickly crumbles under the assault. He begs for mercy, pleading with John to stop. But John is deaf to his pleas. He's consumed by rage, driven by a primal need for vengeance. The fight ends with Sinclair lying battered and broken on the floor, his face a bloody mess. He's no longer the arrogant, untouchable businessman. He's a pathetic, whimpering mess. John stands over him, breathing heavily, his body shaking with adrenaline. He's finally released his anger. But he's also crossed a line. He's become the very thing he was fighting against. A brutal, merciless avenger. He stares down at Sinclair, his face a mask of conflicted emotions. He feels a sense of satisfaction, knowing that he's punished Sinclair for his crimes. But he also feels a sense of shame, knowing that he's succumbed to his own darkness. He leaves Sinclair lying on the floor, awaiting the arrival of the authorities. He knows that he's crossed a line, that he may face consequences for his actions. But he doesn't care. He's done what he had to do, and he's finally avenged his friend's death. The need for a final beatdown arises. With Sinclair apprehended and the authorities en route, John uses the evidence he and Sarah gathered to ensure the full scope of Sinclair's crimes is made public. He contacts Sarah, who, despite her injuries, is already working to disseminate the information to every major news outlet worldwide. The evidence is irrefutable. Bank records, Shell Corporation documents, testimonies from former employees, and recordings of Sinclair's own incriminating statements. The story explodes across the globe, instantly turning Sinclair from a respected philanthropist into a reviled criminal mastermind. The corrupt politicians and law enforcement officials who aided and abetted Sinclair are exposed, their careers and reputations ruined. They are immediately arrested and face prosecution, their complicity in Sinclair's crimes undeniable. The Ponzi scheme victims, many of whom lost their life savings, are identified and contacted. A fund is established to provide them with some measure of compensation, using Sinclair's seized assets and the recovered funds from his illicit operations. While the money cannot fully restore what they have lost, it provides them with a sense of justice and closure. It allows them to rebuild their lives and move forward, knowing that Sinclair has been held accountable for his actions. John makes sure that Ben's family receives a significant portion of the compensation fund. He wants them to know that Ben's death was not in vain, that his sacrifices helped to bring down a corrupt organization and prevent others from becoming victims. He also ensures that Ben's legacy is honored, establishing a foundation in his name to support ethical entrepreneurship and to promote financial literacy. He wants to prevent others from falling prey to scams and to encourage responsible investment practices. As the world learns about Sinclair's crimes, John disappears from the spotlight. He doesn't seek recognition or praise for his actions. He simply wants to return to his quiet life, to find some measure of peace after the storm. He knows that he'll never fully escape the darkness that he's encountered, that the memory of Ben's death will always haunt him. But he also knows that he's done the right thing, that he's brought justice to a corrupt world, that he's avenged his friend's death, and he's made a difference. And that's enough. Some time has passed. The dust has settled. Sinclair is in prison, his empire dismantled, his name synonymous with corruption and greed. The victims of the Ponzi scheme are slowly rebuilding their lives, aided by the compensation fund and the knowledge that justice has been served. John visits Ben's grave, He stands in silence, paying his respects to his fallen friend. He tells Ben that he's avenged his death, that he's brought down the people who wronged him, that he's made sure that his legacy will live on. He places a small stone on Ben's headstone, a symbol of remembrance and respect. He feels a sense of closure, a sense of peace that he hasn't felt since Ben's death. He knows that he can never fully escape the pain and the loss, but he's learned to live with it. He's found a way to honor Ben's memory by fighting for justice and protecting the innocent. He turns to leave, but he pauses, looking back at Ben's grave one last time. He sees a vision of Ben smiling, a sign that he's at peace. He walks away, knowing that Ben is watching over him, guiding him on his path. He's no longer driven by revenge, but by a sense of purpose, a commitment to making the world a better place. He returns to his quiet life, but he's not the same man he was before. He's been changed by his experiences, hardened by the violence he's witnessed, but also strengthened by the bonds of friendship and loyalty. He's become a vigilante, a guardian angel, a force for good in a corrupt world. He's always on the lookout for injustice, ready to step in and protect the innocent. He receives a call from Sarah, who's recovered from her injuries and is back to her investigative journalism. She's uncovered a new case of corruption, a new group of criminals preying on vulnerable individuals. She asks for his help, knowing that he's the only one who can stop them. John hesitates for a moment, contemplating the risks and the sacrifices involved. But he knows that he can't turn away. He has a responsibility to use his skills and his experience to fight for justice. He agrees to help Sarah, embarking on a new mission, a new fight against evil. He's a changed man, a vigilante driven by purpose. He drives off into the sunset, ready to face whatever challenges lie ahead. He's a force to be reckoned with, a protector of the innocent, a champion of justice. The legacy of Ben Carter will continue. The film concludes with John driving away, not into the sunset, but into the grimy reality of another city, another injustice waiting to be addressed. He's not smiling, not victorious, but resolute. The weight of what he's done, and what he knows he will continue to do, is etched on his face. We see him pull up to a rundown apartment building. The camera focuses on a poster plastered on the wall. Local. Seniors victimized by predatory lending scam. The poster features blurry photos of elderly people, their faces etched with worry and despair. John exits his car, his eyes scanning the building, assessing the situation. He's not wearing a suit. He's dressed in his usual practical clothing, ready for action. He carries no weapons in plain sight, but we know he's prepared for anything. He enters the building, the camera following him as he walks down a dimly lit hallway. He passes by several apartments, each one a silent testament to the suffering of the victims. He stops at a particular door, pausing for a moment before knocking. He takes a deep breath, steeling himself for what's to come. The door opens, revealing an elderly woman, her face lined with worry and fear. She looks at John with a mixture of hope and suspicion. John offers her a reassuring smile, his eyes conveying a sense of determination and compassion. He introduces himself, but he doesn't give his real name. He's a ghost, an anonymous protector, a force for justice operating outside the law. He asks the woman about the lending scam. Listening intently to her story, he learns about the predatory lenders, the exorbitant interest rates, and the threats of eviction. He promises the woman that he'll help her, that he'll stop the people who are preying on her and her neighbors. He offers her his card, a simple piece of paper with a phone number and a single word, justice. He leaves the apartment building, his mind already formulating a plan. He knows that he's facing a new challenge, a new group of criminals, but he's ready to fight. He gets into his car and drives away, disappearing into the night. He's a force to be reckoned with, a protector of the innocent, a champion of justice. The camera lingers on the apartment building, on the faces of the victims, on the poster advertising the lending scam. The film ends with a sense of hope and a sense of foreboding, reminder that the fight for justice is never truly over. The brutal beatdowns will continue, one scam, one injustice at a time. The end.